All right, welcome to the Sistah Girls Book Club podcast. I'm your host, Cherie, and we're back with another episode. I am so happy because I'm literally sitting here with Black History during Black Music Month. Miss Alice Randall is here, author of My Black Country, A Journey Through Country's Music Black Past, Present, and Future. Miss Randall is a songwriter and is the first Black woman with the number one country hit song, X's and O's. It was released in 1994. It was sung by Trisha Yearwood. You're a professor and a New York Times bestselling author, a historian to me, an activist. How are you doing? Like, I don't even, I'm ecstatic. I don't have, I know I should have some more decorum, but I'm just like, do you know who you are?
Cherie, I'm discovering, I love all these brilliant, young, Black and brown women helping. I like you seeing myself through your eyes because I'm the ancient history now.
Okay, no, but to me, it's just like you did so much. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, one to your favorite song, 10 being the highest. How do you feel today?
How do I feel today?
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being your favorite song. So, how do you feel in that parameter?
I think I feel about 9 because I'm a little tired. I'm a little
Okay.
tired. I was in Tulsa and Kansas City. I'm about to go last week. I'm about to go for 3 days to Washington, D.C. And as some of
Mhm.
y'all know, if you read the book, that was sort of the site of some of the hard parts of my childhood. So it's hard to come back to Washington. But it's close to a 10 because I'm actually loving this moment where Nashville, where I live now, has become a wild woman's town and a wild Black woman's town. That's why I was so thrilled to be with the Sistah Girls, your podcast today, because this is a podcast that really celebrate and enjoy this moment that Black women are not only making history in country music, but the 300 years of history
Mhm.
is being recognized, and my 41 years of history is recognized.
And that's why I say that you're a historian too, because My Black Country, this book, one, I think everybody should go read it because it's so good. It's jam packed with history, and I think you've had a phenomenal career and a life. But it's a tell your story. This book is a tell of two stories: a tell of Black country music, and then your life story. So, what made you take that track and like infuse both the music and your personal life? Because you could have just wrote a memoir about your life, and that would have been enough. Or you could have just wrote a memoir. Wrote a story about Black country music, and that would have been enough. What made you want to infuse both stories to get this book?
It was sort of like a Black girl's braid, a hair twist or braid that you get stronger when you get 3 twists in there. I've known that since I was a little girl, braiding, getting my hair twisted or braided. So I knew, and I think I've written a novel, Black Bottom Saints, about Black genius in Detroit and Motown. And one of the things I discovered in that is I love writing about other people and thinking about other people. I'm just not that self-centered. Like, I could not have written an entire memoir just about me. And I love it that people can, but that's not me. I want to talk about the first family of Black country. I want to talk about all the Black eccentrics. I just am really interested in other people and love celebrating them. That may be the mama, the auntie in me. I want to shine a spotlight on other people. I also thought, I just turned 65 May 4th, that because some of my story has been getting to hard won happy, and you know, it's not a center part of this book, but I had a very difficult and abusive mother. And when I was coming up, there weren't enough stories that shared how you can get to hard won happy after that. There's some really important ones like Maya Angelou, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And those books were so important to me. So I wanted to give the world one of those books. I knew there was some girl out there that needed to hear that you make sane like you make a bed every day, and that you
Mhm.
can get to hard won happy and is really real. And so, and that other stuff can seem like a long time ago. It never feels like a bad, it was a reality, but it is not my present. And so I wanted to tell my own story, but I even more want to tell the Lil Hardin story and the D4 Bailey story and those Black women we don't even know what their names were that were
Mhm.
making up songs on the Chesapeake Bay in the 17th century and the 18th century. That was the first Black country. And, I got Frederick Douglass writing some of those lyrics down, and I wanted to celebrate all that.
That's amazing. So one thing that I noticed that your dad played like a big part in teaching you like the history. It was known as the gossip in the beginning because you couldn't prove it until you did prove that what they were saying about Black country singers being like the first family, the real first family of Black country music. And so looking back now, how do you feel knowing that you're a part of that? Like you're not just the one listening to the story, you're now the storyteller all these years later, when you were just a girl hearing these stories and hear this information about, like Little Heart and all the other people, and now you're the one telling us the stories.
I love that. It feels like that cycle. It feels like the circle not being broken in a good way. My father was a girl dad before we called them girl dads, that he was a totally feminist Black father who told me, he said, "What do you think? Traditional was a color gal." Like he always believed, and he pointed out the banjo was an African instrument. He talked to me about Lil Hardin playing on the first million selling country single, but he didn't call it that. He said it, that big Peckerwood hit, that he knew that there's all this Black genius on it. So and he also told to me a lot about Anna Gordy, who was Berry Gordy's sister, who founded Anna Records with one of her sisters a year before Motown Records. So I always knew that one day it'd be my turn to take the torch and run with it. And then I'd be passing it back the way it is now to Allison Russell and Rihanna and Giddens and Reese Palmer and Nico Marks. So I knew that we are part of an unbroken chain of find a way and make a way women, Black women. And I'm thrilled that I have been able to put my fingerprints on some of this earth. But I knew we are find a way and make a way women. And I don't like this, but it's just the truth. I was determined to do it or die trying.
Wow.
That I was going to do it or keep trying until the day I died. And the big thing is, I'm against John Henry syndrome and Pollyann syndrome. So what I have learned to do it is to do it and live triumphantly, joyfully try. So that to me, that joy is radical. And I've learned to work with joy.
I love that. So one of the things that I love was the story that you tell about your first trip to New York City. As a girl, you come, and this is my city because I'm in New York now, and you come to see the Supremes at the Copacabana, I believe. And they perform, and this is funny because you're from Detroit, like that's Motown, and then you come all the way to New York to see the Supremes, which is Motown and Detroit, like all of that, and they sing a country song, right? So how did that affirm like your Black country music for you, and then seeing them perform that on stage at such a young age? Like they performed the country song. So how did that help you out, especially being so young?
One, they were sister girls. They were just teenagers making history right then. Young women, the first Motown act to open at the Copacabana, and they sang a country song. It told me that country was really important. It told me that we came from the rural South. We came from small towns. We go to the big city. But I said the part of Detroit I lived in, the part of Detroit the Supremes come from, we might as well call it Detroit, Alabama, because everybody was straight up from Alabama. The same way there are parts of Chicago, you might as well call it Chicago, Mississippi, because people are straight up. The food, the way we talk, everything. So it was triumphant. And I didn't know you were going to ask me that question, but this is literally right here in my house. So I'm going to you said this is the chill podcast, and we're
it's very chill. We very sister girl right here. So
okay.
Oh wow!
In my office, that's little girl me. That's me, right? Pointing the wrong way. There me. There I am. And oops, there's my babysitter who turned into a judge, Beverly Jasper, and we are at the Copacabana. And that was when that was my first flight.
That is
my first
amazing.
flight and that little dress I'm wearing.
Yeah, because you wanted to be seen. You wanted to be seen. I remember you said that in the
my
book.
Aunt Mary Francis, who taught me about Ray Charles, modern sounds, and country and western, she sewed that dress for me, just like Lil Hardin Armstrong. sewed suits for Louis Armstrong
Louis
and for so
Armstrong,
many
yeah.
jazz greats and for herself.
Mhm.
And so I was at the Copacabana ringside. I was repping Detroit. And I think that, I was on my way. And to see the Supremes are such embody so much genius, both
Yes.
in their interpretation of songs, the drama they bring to the songs, the sounds, and their physical beauty, and the way at that time they were a little tiny community, the three of
Mhm.
them,
Yeah,
just
I love that.
extraordinary.
I mean, you got history right in your like right behind you. I love that. So I love the breakdown that you give of the different types of country that you get from each of like your mom, your grandmother, and your aunt, and even your dad. So how did their music taste, along with your father's, shape your ear and writing style?
That's a great question. My grandmother loved the songs in air. She would sing to me when I was sitting in her lap, and she'd sing, "Will the Circle Be Unbroken?" And she'll be coming around the mountain. So she taught me about hiding some of your meaning. Like, what is that song, "She'll be coming around the mountain," really about? And should the circle be broken or unbroken? And so she taught me to be subversive with some of my lyrics, to hide my candy. Then my Aunt Mary Frances, she played and wore out Ray Charles, Modern Sounds and Country and Western. She loved a lot of jazz music. She taught me that other genres can go into country and make it stronger, and particularly other Black genres. So for me, I have looked at ways in which certain hip hop strategies can go into country, been interested in how Black gospel can go into country, and that's been influencing me a lot for that. My mother, she loved the radio and the sort of honky tonk mainstream things. And that reminded me that hits are important. With X's and O's, that was 2 weeks at #1 with Trisha Yearwood. And that song, my favorite line is, "She's got her God and she's got good wine, Aretha Franklin and Patsy Cline." It puts Aretha Franklin in there as the American girl and puts her ahead of Patsy Cline. But we did it in a way to get those radio hits, because that means millions of people, tens of millions of people are getting it. When you get some obscure little song that's not a big hit, that's just for the aficionados. Now, my Aunt Mary Frances, she knew some music that other people didn't know. She knew obscure music. But I also wanted to get the everyday people like my mother, who would be just listening to the radio doing the laundry in the basement, and get in their head with these political messages. So each of these women, my mother, my aunt, and my grandmother, introduced me to a different part of country music. And my father probably introduced me to just the radical importance of owning your own publishing, considering having your own record label, that it is a business as well as an art, and that a smart woman takes care of business, and told me about a lot of women who did the business parts, publishing, songwriting, producing. He didn't really encourage me at all to be an artist. He encouraged me, except for as a songwriter.
I love that. So you gave the definition of a black country in the book, but what are elements that one would need in order to have to make a country song a black country song, in your opinion?
Well, one way, all country is Black country, because my definition of country is it takes English, Irish, Scottish ballads plus African influences plus evangelical Christianity. It takes all three of those things for something to be country. If it doesn't have the Black influences, it could be just a folk song. If it doesn't have the evangelical Christianity, it could be a blues song. It takes all three of those things. But other things that I need to see to know something is Black country is one, that somebody who considers himself to be a Black country artist sings it. Two, somebody who is a Black artist is singing a song that people recognize as having country elements. And I'll get back to that in a moment. Three, it can be it centers a Black instrument, such as the banjo, certain kinds of styles of fiddle playing. Um, So there's a lot of things that go into depending, or the Black country audience likes it. One of the things that's really wild is in certain parts of Africa, Don Williams is very popular, that who is a white country artist. But to me, you can look at the artists, the artifacts, which is the instruments and the songs. You can look at the song content, or you can look at an audience. And if a Black audience is perceiving themselves as being a Black country audience and they're embracing it, then it might be Black country. And I love the songs that have all of that up in there. Say, whether that is Reese Palmer or Ray Charles or Bill Withers, who most people think of as a pop artist.
Mhm.
But Bill Withers is the grandson of West Virginia coal miners, the Black grandson of Black coal
Mhm.
miners. And I think Bill Withers is a country artist.
Yes, I like that. That's what I'm saying. You got the history down pat. So in 1983, that was a significant year for you because you attended the 25th anniversary of the CMA Awards Association. And there is a moment where you are the country music is being recognized and it's being talked about, but you notice that Black country music singers like Little Heart, they're not being mentioned. And so once you
And
really
D4 Bailey, the
and
first,
D4 Bailey, yeah,
the
D4 Bailey
opera's
wasn't being
first
mentioned.
superstar.
Yeah,
This is a
he's not.
man that Roy Acuff is on the stage speaking. He knew D4 Bailey. He knew that D4 Bailey helped launch his career. He knew
Uh-huh.
Chet Atkins. He knew that D4 Bailey helped launch Chet Atkins' career. And they have time to mention comedians that aren't even in country music, but they don't have time to name D4 Bailey, Lil
Mhm.
Hardin, or Herb Jeffries, who are still living. Herb
So,
Jeffries was still alive that day.
so
And
when
they
that
don't.
happens and you recognize that, how do you feel? Did you think about what your place or your position would now be in country music? And did you feel like it was going to be like an uphill climb? Because if all these superstars were not mentioned on like the biggest stage of country music, and you're like, I'm young and I'm like about to get into this space and I'm here now. How did you view your place? What did you view your place at that time, if you remember?
I knew it would be what we call back then a hard road to hoe. It was going to be a hard road to hoe. I think I came from Detroit. I don't know, you could have done it Motown. I had that Detroit, they call it chin up swagger. Like Detroit people are pretty defiant. There's a Detroit chin up swagger, and I had a lot of that.
Mhm.
Um, I knew it'd be a hard road to hoe. When I first got there, people told me that I should just go back. Someone already told me I should just go back to wherever it was I came from. The reason I actually moved to Nashville, and I was at that concert the night before, 2 nights before I moved, was that someone wrote me a letter and
Yeah,
said that I had no talent whatsoever, that he had
I
let
remember.
3 people that I had no talent, and that just convinced me I needed to move to Nashville and prove them wrong. And I also wanted to fight for these Black artists who had been erased. I
Yeah.
just felt I wanted to do that. I wanted to try.
Mhm. I love that. So in a book, you made it a point to note that country music is raw. They sing about like some heavy stuff, and the crowd doesn't judge them. Like they could really be like, "My wife, I killed her yesterday." Say some really wild stuff, and people really won't like bat an eye. But you said on the flip side, Black artists have to always be virtuous. Like we can't go dark like that. So how did that shape Black country music? And do you think that we're still there? Do you think that now we're able to have those raw songs, or do you still think that we have to be virtuous, and why?
One, I think that we get to be equally human, and Black people don't have to be perfect to be worthy of respect and love. And the thing I like about country is it gives that to most characters, but it doesn't always give that to Black characters. I don't like that. I like
Yeah.
that country gives it to people, but I don't like it's withheld. So I
Yeah.
think that we see with Raina Roberts, for example, she's
Hmm.
all kinds of subversive and wild. I call that P Valley country. That
Hmm.
it is like, so I think that we are seeing, and I certainly think in my songs I've tried to do, one's called Girls Ride Horses Too. And this is a woman caught up in the drug trade with her man, and he's trying to intimidate her. And she is robbing him of his money and his drugs and tells him life on the border is a little bit rough. That song became a top 10 country song. Now, when it was originally sung, it was sung by a white woman. And I don't think when it was originally charting, if Black women had sung it, it would have been accepted in the same way. They've been pointing fingers at it like they point fingers at hip hop and rap, saying, oh, look at them. Not looking at Johnny Cash saying, early one morning, I'm making my rounds. I took a shot of cocaine and I shot my woman down. That's all in country. Earl had to die. They poisoned him with black eyed peas. They looked the other way at all that.
Mm-hmm.
But now Sister Strings, who are so brilliant, two Black sisters out of the Middle West, on my new album, they are singing Girls Ride Horses too. And people are loving it and embracing it and asking for it. So it is a new day that Black women do not have to be perfect. And I'm not advocating drug running and robbery, but I'm saying you can be a drug runner and a robber, as we say in the old culture. Murderers got mamas too. We got to be concerned with people's whole selves, not judge them by their worst day.
Yes, I love that. I know that's right. So you have a love and a relationship with music and songs that is beautiful in a way that it connects with your loved ones. So what songs are speaking to you now and who are they connected to?
Oh, that's a really interesting. One, I have to just start by saying, and I got my album here, that, you know, I am connected to this album like I've never been connected to anything. And I'm a person who can listen to 14 hours of music a day. So I love these songs. These are 11 of my songs that have been previously recorded all by white artists and now being all recorded by Black and brown women, including my own daughter has created, deconstructed, reconstructed, and created an homage to X's and O's, which is like a whole nother artifact. But as I talked about Sister Strings, all of those mean a lot to me. And they mean a lot in this moment because I thought I was going to die and be retired before I ever heard Black women singing my songs as I originally imagined them, but more importantly, before an entire audience of Indigenous, Asian, Black, white people heard these Black voices sing the songs and realized that my sheroes and heroes were many of them Black and brown people because that had been erased by who was singing. So I love that. But Alison Russell's song Persephone, who is about a young girl who's being attacked by a monster in her own house. And I mean, a real life domestic abuse type monster. That song to me is a new song for the canon that uplifts me so much. And I think it's a beacon of hope to so many girls who are being abused. And in this case, she finds solace and strength in her young lover's bed, another young woman. I find that song radically reviving and wildly interesting. I love so many of these new artists, but as I said, I start off with that Alison Russell song. I love so much of what Rhiannon Giddens and Our Native Daughters have done. Brittany Howard, and Brittany Spencer is doing some really amazing things. But and even I think Breland is doing some interesting things, and the duo have some great. There's so many interesting artists, but Reese Palmer is one of my favorites, and I love her song "Somerville." Reminds me so much of growing up with my grandmother in Detroit. So I love. There's a lot of really interesting artists right now. That's why I say right now it's a wild woman's town. There's so many. And I'm thrilled that My Black Country is a starting point for people to meet a lot of artists they may not know, and then they can go chase them in a lot of directions. And from chasing them, find even more artists they may not know.
Yeah, I mean, you said all the names, okay? So one thing
Sunny War, that I didn't say one of my, I forgot to say Sunny War. She's on there.
Okay,
oh,
I actually was listening to the song early because she's on the album, right? She's on the album.
I adore Sunny War.
Yeah, her voice is very it has she's singing from the soul, like you can hear it.
She's like Nina Simone, new 21st century Black country.
Her voice is serious. So one of the things that you mentioned in your book was Black country eccentrics. So why are they important, and who do you think are our generation's Black country eccentrics? Because for those who haven't read it yet, these are the artists who make us think. These are artists who are going to push the boundaries.
Um, I think that, the eccentrics are the Black country artists who refuse to be seduced into a false sense of belonging, achieved by adhering to established codes of aesthetics. These are the people who really, truly go their own way. They are willing to be independent even from the home community of other ways people have defined Blackness within the Black community, or and free from the dominant culture. They are flexing their connection to a globe, not an acre, and they flex their humanity by doing that. Now, going back, people like Swamp Dogg. Right now, that's people often including Breland has some of that eccentricity in him. Little Nas X has some of this eccentricity in them. There are Sonny Ward's got some of that Black eccentric energy. These are people who are defining themselves, tuning to their own spirit, inner spirit, and they're finding something as a result that applies to everyone. But I love their defiance and their grace and just their pure imagination. They're wild, wild imaginations. And they invent every part of themselves, including starting with the self. Like Sister Strings have just tremendously wonderful hair colors. I mean, if you just look at the way that they are always reinventing and they are walking poems, visual poems. I love that.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like for me, because I'm from Brooklyn, and I think now we've all started to now listen to country music more, and like you start hearing the gospel, you start hearing Blackness in the music, period, right? And then I noticed that as we like start having more of these conversations, we start talking about, of course, the popular people now, but you've been doing this work forever, right? Did
41
you
years.
41 years, did you ever think that you would dedicate your whole life to it? And how has that been looking back? Like, because at one point, like, I think a lot of people don't realize how deep into it you were, like even from your parents to even when you had like those tumultuous times in your teenage years, you still always turn to country music. That was always your refuge, right? And then
Right.
you go and then you move like in your early 20s to like Nashville. You're out of here, and then you're by yourself. Like, you got a community, but it's still very hard, and you know that they don't want you in that space. So how did you navigate that, and then also keeping that passion and having that resilience to say, I'm going to be here, like no matter if y'all tell me I'm not supposed to be and not worthy, I'm going to be here and I'm going to tell those stories? Because it would seem like it was a lot of times in that book I'd be like, girl, I would have sat down for a little while. I'm like, how did you keep going?
I think one, I had my first family. I had Lil Hardin in my head. I like people have imaginary friends as children. I had this whole imaginary Black first family of country that was riding with me. And I did have that wild and crazy father who used to say to me, I told you I come from this country song. When they told me I should just go back to where I should come from. And, one of my hard days, I had someone early on say, I've been at this too long if I have to compete with N-word girls from Harvard. And I stepped right to him. I said, I am.
Mm.
And you do. So number one is, but my father used to say when I was a little girl, like, he didn't tell me the normal nursery stories. He said, why are you holding your head down? What's wrong, little girl? What's wrong, little girl? He said, in the morning, it takes $100 nailed to the dope house door to get somebody killed. In the evening, when a junkie needs a fix, all it takes is $40. I got $40. What's wrong, little girl? So I came from this wild story. Now, the important part about that story is my father wanted me to tell him what's wrong. And the second part of that story was he wanted to tell me that whatever was wrong, there was going to be a next step that worked for me. And the third thing he was saying was, never be so desperate for anything that you would do the unspeakable for $40 nailed to the dope house door. And that's a country song, because that $40 nailed to the dope house door, that was a metaphor for Jesus nailed to the cross. That was the $40 of the disciple that told on Jesus, right? There was all that evangelical Christianity. That was sure life is hard. That was sure God is real, because he put the nail to the cross in there. And it was sure the family is compensation because my daddy said, I am here with you. But it was true. I did have that crazy daddy. I don't know what he really would have done. So I used to worry I used to think these people would be coming from me. I said, you do not know I have a Detroit daddy. If I just one phone call up to the north might not be very good for you.
Uh-huh.
They were very lucky that I am a very nonviolent person. And so I never went to my I never went to my most brutal allies because my father was a very strong ally.
I love that. Yeah, because your dad, he was not to be played with through this. He never gave you that sentiment of like, oh, I'm gonna just hug you and tell you it's gonna be okay. He's like, no, pick yourself up and keep pushing because you got things to do.
Absolutely. Get
I
up
love
and fight. Get
that.
up and get up and fight. They were,
Mhm.
I mean, that was and he also did teach me that words were powerful, that my words were powerful. You know,
Mhm.
my very first country song I ever wrote was a little girl in a Motown cherry tree. Daddy,
Yeah.
don't go in that BAR.
Yeah.
Daddy, please don't leave me alone in the car. Now he still went in the bar, but he didn't
Yeah.
leave me alone
I
in the
remember
bar.
that part. He
He
still went
took
there.
me into the bar with him. So I learned my words were powerful. And I probably learned I need to get this order right carefully because I might need to say, don't leave me alone in the car. Don't
Mhm.
even go. Because I got part of it, not the other part.
So I know everybody's probably wondering, like, what is your songwriting process? What does that look like for you? Because I'm sitting here with like, you're like history. Like I'm gonna tell somebody that and they're gonna be like, yeah, right, you didn't interview her. So what is your songwriting process like? People who are trying to get into songwriting, who want to be in this space, whether it's country music or army music or whatever it is, they're like, I want to be you. So what is that process like for you? And how did you keep coming up with new ideas?
Well, first of all, you keep coming up with new ideas by living. And I mean that seriously. So the first thing is I would say for anybody who wants to be a songwriter out there, get a notebook and you got three different things to think about. The first one you got to think about is what do I want to write about? And the thing that you and think about these kind of things. What is missing from the world, from the radio that I can provide? What's missing? What's not there? Some people try to just imitate what's already there, but that's not going to get you ahead. You've got to say, what's missing? What do I want to hear that's not there? And start thinking about that. And then once you get those subjects, those things, start thinking about titles. It's really very technical. A song, often a title is an incredibly important part of a song, as is the hook, whatever is, or the multiple hooks. So you got to be thinking about, if I want to write a song about the homelessness, like that was something I wanted to write about when I wrote Many Mansions. I looked at a lot of different titles that could be about that. Um, so get that. And then got to start drafting. Realize writing is rewriting. That's in all genres. I'm a novelist too, songwriter. Very few times. Now, X's and O's, that whole song came in about 40 minutes. But for the most part, songwriting is a lot of rewriting and getting it the best it can really be. So the first thing is you think about what do you want to write about? Second, think about those titles. Third, start drafting. Fourth, find the collaborators that really matter to you. And the collaborator that really matters to you isn't necessarily someone just like you. It's someone different than you, but harmonizes emotionally with you. Because if a song and a line can matter to two people who are very different, it might be able to matter to the world. You can, like, if you're just talking to your friends and your people who think just like you, well, it could work just for this small group. But when there's two people, the magic of co-writing, when both of you think, yes, that's it, I live that, but you didn't live it together, then you've been hitting on those universals. And that's what you're trying to get. For a song to work, it's got to be out in the world and it's going to be lifting people up or chilling them out or catalyzing. It's like speaking their pain, witnessing their pain. These are the main things songs do. They lift you up or they chill you out or they witness your suffering. And all of that, what I say about in country is it takes something that is too hard to bear, turns it into beauty that makes the hard bearable. And then
Mm.
sometimes it just gets you shaking your booty and getting out there, making love, making fun, making joy. And as I told you, joy is radical. So that's really important too. Like that's what I love about Texas Hold'em. That song is a dance song, but it's a radical joy dance song. And it has a deep message. Life isn't a game. Texas Hold'em is a card game. And that song is all about the fact life is not a game. It's not some cards. It's real. God is real. Nature is real. The honey, the sweet honey, and the tornadoes, they're both in that song. So, so I just say write something necessary that other people need to hear.
I love that. Well, speaking of Texas Hold'em, we can't talk about country music right now, anyway, in this present moment, without talking about Beyonce and Cowboy Carter and how it kind of like exploded. Like it busted the door wide open. Not saying that there weren't black country singers. Obviously, you've been doing this over 40 years. You know, it's a plethora. But how do you feel about the album? One. And then how do you feel? Because you said one of the things that you said earlier was that you were going to do this work, get there or die trying. And you didn't have to die to see a black woman hit that top of that country chart. You're alive to witness it, and you're alive to witness a bunch of black women. You have an album, like you held it up earlier, an album of black women country singers, black and brown women country singers. And this is not a dream. This is not a daydream or well, this would be cool. It's right now. You're able to like live it, sit in it, be on it, give it your flowers, and then also partake in it because you're having these conversations with me, obviously, and then you're able to see Beyonce, Cowboy Carter, and all these black women. How does it feel, right? Especially knowing that even with Beyonce, they gave her pushback because it was like they didn't want to play it on the radio at one point. And then when she did daddy lessons on the CMAs, that was pushback. But still, we're here, like, and you're a huge part of that. How do you feel?
I feel my daughter coined the phrase for me, Juneteenth energy. I feel like
Oh,
good news at long last is still good news. So
yes.
one, I feel it is a pure Juneteenth energy. You said it exactly. I thought I would die without seeing a black woman at the top of the charts. And to put that in context for this podcast, Sistah Girls, when I arrived in 1983, Charlie Pride had already been to the top of the charts 29 times. Ray Charles would be there. Other people, Darius Rucker, Jimmy Allen, so many. Not one black woman to Beyonce. There was extra violent, vicious, real pushback, cultural redlining against black women specifically. So I've been working against that, trying to change that for 41 years. It was thrilling that I got to see it before I retired while I was still alive. I am totally thrilled to see that day. But I want people to know it's a movement, not a moment. That I've been doing this for 41 years, but since about 2006, that's when Rhiannon Giddens was in the Carolina Chocolate Drops and they were in the Great Debaters. That's when a lot of people start listening to Black country, and that Denzel Washington movie, he directed that for the first time. That's about the same time Reese Palmer will get on the country charts, and she'll be the first Black woman on the country charts in the 21st century. It'll be 40 years before when it was Linda Martell. So 2006, 2007, that's when the roots of this moment.
Yeah, because you wrote about Linda Martell before. I mean, now we like
Oh,
are
in
talking about all the time, but you wrote about her like in 20, what, 10, 20, 2000?
2010, I was the first person to do in the 21st century a big old article about her. That was consciously spotlighting her. So all of this started in about 2006. I started teaching a course, Country, Lyric, and American Culture. I started teaching a course at Vanderbilt called Black Country in 2015, 9 years ago. And I've had Mickey Guyton come to that class, Reese Palmer come to that class. We've had a lot of people participate in this. So it is a movement, not a moment. And as I said, we have been doing this and read the book since the 17th century. And we've been doing it in recorded country since at least 1927 and probably before that. And 1930, when Lil Hardin is going to be on that Blue Yodel #9, the first million selling country single. We've been up in the hits for almost 100 years. We just haven't been seeing it. So now I've got to show you my other picture. And this is done by
I
really
love this.
Black woman tattoo artist, Elishaba. She's been on
Oh wow,
Instagram. This is the portrait she did for me
that's
of the
beautiful.
first family of Black country. There's Lil Hardin. This is my imaginary family that held me close. There's D4. These are my ancestors. That's the papa and the mama of Black country. That's their genius child, Ray Charles. That's D4's side child. Country is cornbread, Charlie Pride. And this is, oops, there is Lil stepchild, Herb Jeffries. Oops. Sorry. There is Herb Jeffries, the bronze buckaroo. He's like the grandfather of Lil Nas X. You have to see some of his wild stuff. But that's my first family of Black country. And those people, you know, as I said, they were making music. Lil was on that million selling country hit in 1930. Again, that's almost 100 years ago. D4 was making music before that. So I am totally thrilled that we have gotten to this moment, that we get to talk about them, that these people that were precious to me, and that's what I love about what you're doing, is you're giving me the chance to finally give them all their flowers. You're giving me my flowers, and a lot of people in this moment are doing that. Reading the book is about really giving them their flowers and seeing them celebrated. I was just talking to Lil Hardin, went to Fisk University for 3 years. And, you know, I love that I'm getting to connect Lil to Fisk and to shed another light on HBCUs. I know there's some probably Fiskites watching this right now, but most of them don't know that Lil Hardin, that Fisk is part of Black country beyond contributing through the Fisk Jubilee Singers. That the story doesn't begin with them as part of Black country.
That's amazing. It's not even much to say after that because you said it all. But I have a couple flash questions and then we'll get out of here. So you just answer them really quickly, whatever comes to the first answer to your mind. Okay, so writing in the daytime or the night?
Ooh, I write mainly in the daytime. And I write a lot at the sink, like washing dishes or in the shower. The water helps me.
Okay, so writing a book or writing a song?
Now I write books more. You know, I'm up to 8 books. I got old and slow. Songs you had to get. I stopped really doing a lot of songwriting because you have to go out and hear the music. And I got so tired of coming in at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning and having to wash the smoke out of my curls, because though they're not supposed to be still smoking, outside the door in front, they're smoking. So,
okay, coffee or tea?
Coffee, black coffee, all day. My 3 addictions: coffee, reading. Those are the 2, actually. Books and coffee are my 2 addictions.
Okay, listening to music on a record player or in your headphones, like streaming?
The truth is now it's streaming. That's where I get it all day and night.
Malcolm X or Martin Luther King Jr.?
Malcolm X.
Okay. And who is Alice Randall?
A mama, a creative, a nurturer, a Black woman from Motown who ended up in Music City and likes to work both ends of the street.
I love that. Thank you so much. This has been so filling to me. I feel like I said, I'm sitting with history. Tell the people where they can find you on like the internet, and yes, get the book. I got the book.
Get the book. I need you to support this. Let's get. I can be found at Ms. Alice Randall. That's MS Alice Randall on Instagram. And despite the weirdness of it, I'm still on X, so you can find me at either of those. I've got a website, www.alicerandall.com. And that has really good book club questions, has ways to get in touch with me, even has a recipe for a cocktail. So www.alicerandall.com. I'm going to be in Washington I'm doing shops all around. If anyone, I love being in this book club, and I am thrilled to answer questions and not that hard to find. So
All right. Thank you so much again. And thank you for doing the work, because now we all get to eat from it, and we get to have the knowledge and spread the knowledge and become more aware. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you dedicating your life to that. A lot of people are giving up, and making the hits that are now classics. To see so many people who are like trying to imitate the songs now are singing them. I go on TikTok and they're like loving your songs up. And I'm like, do they even know? So I appreciate you and thank you
I
so much.
love that. I love the hits that are now classics. That's the crown I'm going to wear today. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Love
you so
all you
much.
brilliant new women. Yes.
Have a